Fred and Tripp had a guest, Patches McGillicuddy. Patches was Fred's half-cousin on his stepfather's-in-law's side. Patches was a forest gnome from Nizhna. He had invented a state-of-the-art computer game for forest folk. It was called the Blue Leaf Tetrahedron 4000. It was just a stick, but lots of fun. It also only had one game that worked, Helljumper 14. You hold the stick with both hands and run around screaming ridiculous things like all children do. Where did you get this great idea from, Mr. McGillicuddy? Tripp asked. Well, Tripp, my boy, I stole it from an elephant who had ripped it straight from a giant pear tree, Patches replied with a sense euphoric nostalgia. Tripp smiled and asked, and how does the technology work? Oh, that's an easy one. Fred jumped in. Well, you do know that there are infinite universes and parallel realities. What you probably don't know is how to access those realities, Fred continued. The first step in interreality hoping, or THED as we plant folk like to call it. Why do you call it that? Tripp inquired. Because the penis sounds too much like, well, penis. Can I continue? Okay, so in order to jump realities one needs to just shift one's assembly point. If you could see reality from the point of a tree, you would see that each leaf see what the whole tree sees, but each leaf also looks into its own parallel world. The tree itself therefore looks into thousands of realities simultaneously. The Blue Leaf Tetrahedron 4000 allows you, the player, for the first time ever to do this. Tripp just sat there looking at Fred. Then said, how do you know all that? I was just reading the instruction manual, Fred replied, rolling his eyes. I was standing right in front of you holding a giant turquoise book with the words the Blue Leaf Tetrahedron 4000 instruction manual, Fred yelped. That's awesome. Mr. McGillicuddy, sir, how many have you sold? Tripp asked. The last time I checked we had sold all 144,000 units. You see, the U.S. military-industrial complex thinks it works and they don't want it in the hands of your common forest folk, so they bought the lot. But mind you, the thing doesn't actually work because we can't find a power source. Our last guesstimation calculated it would need 100 billion million suns, or the imagination of a child, and 2 full pockets of Peruvian bullshit. Tripp and Fred looked at one another and laughed in unison, saying Peruvian magic bullshit. Well, I need to be going, boys, but I got you some gifts. For you, Fred my boy, a check for $11 million, and Tripp, a lock of Taylor Swift's hair. Okay, stop. Tripp began. How did you get Taylor Swift to give you a lock of her hair, and did she talk about me? That story, my boy, is for another visit. And with that, Patches vanished in a dance of blue and turquoise lights, and all that remained was a pair of rare aquamarine quartz crystals.